What is going on, everyone, and welcome to the ninth episode of The Ronan Bell Show. I am your host, Ronan Bell, and with me today is a man who most of the time had a mask on and also did one-arm push-ups in front of 110,000 people. Allow me to introduce former Nittany Lion, Zach Sowa. Zach, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, Ronan? Great to talk to you again. It's been
Dude,
a
it's been
while,
a
but it's a
dude, it's
pleasure
been
being
a
here.
minute, brother. So let's go into a little bit about some basic information about yourself before we dive deep into deeper topics. So could you just tell the listeners out there a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm on here because I served 3 years as the Nittany Lion mascot at Penn State. I was selected in 2017 and served as the mascot all the way through 2020. I actually was the longest reigning student lion, which is we can get into that a little bit later. But
Yeah.
yeah, there are a few quirky things about my tenure that kind of gave me a little bit more clout than I deserved. Um, but anyway, yeah. So I mean, really just had things go my way and landed myself in a crazy crazy spot.
So let's go into a little bit before that you became the Nittany Lion. Could you tell the listeners out there a little bit where you went to high school, where you grew up? Could you just a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I grew up in South Central PA, right near Harrisburg, and I went to Catholic school my whole life. I think we'll probably talk about it a little bit later, but my faith is like a pretty big factor in my life. And so growing up through Catholic school, otherwise like very normal childhood. I played sports growing up, was never exceptional. I was just like maybe like a little above average. I was so yeah. I mean, I would make the teams, but like not get a ton of time. Or if I did get time, I wasn't an outstanding player. So throughout high school, I focused mostly on basketball. But my senior year, I had a buddy who was an elite diver, like literally Olympic class diver, and he was one of my best friends like lifelong, and he senior year kind of just convinced me to go for it, try diving. So yeah, that's where I gained my foundational knowledge of like tumbling and how I learned to do a backflip and everything. But yeah, just very normal until I went to Penn State. But yeah, then even normal then until I was actually selected. So
Everything blows up from there.
yeah.
All right, so let's go into when you're in high school, you're thinking like, wow, what is my next step in life going to be? Did you have any idea of really if you wanted to come here or what did you want to do in general?
Yeah, so it's actually a fun fact. I mean, I'm probably one of the most diehard Penn State fans you'll meet, as would be expected by
I
the
wonder why.
mascot. Um, but I almost didn't go to Penn State. And the reason was because in high school, I decided that I wanted to study cybersecurity. Um, and the reasoning behind that was kind of complex, not because I like had this dying passion for it that like wasn't going to go away. I mean, I do enjoy it. It's a great challenge and it's it's very interesting. But I just decided that it was going to be my best career choice. So I was looking at a bunch of schools in terms of like their cybersecurity programs, and at the time, I wasn't super impressed with Penn State's cybersecurity program. I loved Penn State growing up, like all the time. My parents met at Penn State, um, and I used to love going to the games. We didn't ever have season tickets, but whenever we would go to the games, I would go all out, like put all sorts of paint on my face and everything. Um, but yeah, so loved Penn State, but wasn't impressed with the program. I applied to a bunch of other schools, and actually, of the schools that I got into, um, my top choice was University of Maryland in terms of their academic program. Um, so ultimately, when it came down to it, I compared the two, and I was like, all right, Penn State, Maryland. Maryland appears to have better academics for my specific major. but I love it at Penn State. I'm in state for Penn State, and I even got I got a tiny scholarship, academic scholarship for Penn State. So it ended up being like about half the cost. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to pass up going to this super awesome fun school to pay double to go to Maryland. So yeah, I just kind of got like pushed in this direction, which I wasn't resisting. um, and yeah, then I went to Penn State. I was quickly very pleased that like my professors were great. They are very smart people. I don't know what made me think that I like, that I needed anything smarter than.
It's all those reviews online. Internet's a dangerous place.
Yeah, seriously. It's like pumps up your ego in weird ways. Like seriously, like if there's anybody listening that's deciding on college, understand that no matter where you go, the professors there will be able to teach you more than you will be able to learn from them. So I think you're above anything. Really just go where you feel like you fit and where you can actually like make an impact. And that's that
Big reason why you chose here. You fit. I think everything's worked out pretty well coming to Penn State anyway. So
yeah, but nobody could have predicted that.
So
Actually,
let's.
kind of along those lines, it was really strange because so if you couldn't tell by now, I went into college with like an extremely academic focus. Like I was wondering how I was gonna like freaking do research and like change the world through like my education. Because I mean, obviously, a common theme I think is that people want to make an impact on the world, and mine the driving force in a lot of my decisions is service. And we can kind of touch on how that manifested itself. But yeah, I was thinking super academically, and I had a cousin who went to Penn State and graduated in 3 years with a double major and a 4.0. And so I was like, all right, there's a pretty high standard to live up to. Well, my first semester freshman year, I didn't get a 4.0. I got 1 A-. And I was like, oh no, it's over. I already blew it. So seriously, that was tough for me. And I kind of like shifted my focus. I was like, all right, well, that didn't work out. How else can I like make an impact here? And then my second semester, I started thinking about a lot of different things, even ironically transferring. Which we're really I'm kind of just like
Well, that's a big. I mean, that's a big move. Let's hold up. Before we go into like the whole thing, when you get here,
in here.
let's try and get the flow back a little bit. So you're coming to Penn State. You arrive here. Obviously, you're talking a lot about academics first thing on your mind, which I think a lot of people believe that when you're going to college, I need to get here. I need to do my stuff. I need to do my stuff. I need to get my degree. But let's go into a little bit of like freshman year before all this big opportunity, like you were saying, before coming to Nittany Lion, before even trying out. What did your freshman year experience be like, at least in that first semester, a little bit at the beginning of that spring semester?
As I kind of said it earlier, it was very normal. I mean, like I was making friends in classes, making friends at the dorm, having a decent social life on the weekends. I wasn't like partying all the time. Like I wasn't like a Wednesday through Saturday or even Sunday partier, but
he wasn't hardcore.
What?
I said you weren't hardcore enough.
Yeah, no, not super hardcore in any capacity. Really just like kind of middle ground in everything. So yeah, I mean, it was fairly unremarkable. I mean, I had a great time. I mean, I went to Penn State. Penn State's a super fun school. I mean, I obviously went to tons of sporting events and loved the success we were having in sports. And my freshman year was the year that we really like turned around football and we won the Big Ten championship and everything. So yeah, like seeing the like downtown celebrations after wins and everything. Like it was crazy. I was having a lot of fun, but I mean, I wasn't a standout in any sort of capacity. And flash forward a little bit to the second semester. As I said, I was having a great time, but I was talking regularly to my friend who convinced me to dive with him. He decided to go to the Naval Academy. And while he was an Olympic class diver, he kind of like forewent his diving abilities and really like committed himself to the service. So yeah, his experience in his at the Naval Academy, they call them plebes. You're not a freshman, you're a plebe, which is like very like derogatory. Like you're like the scum there. So his freshman year was like packed with basically just like hell. He was constantly telling me about all these rough, like challenging experiences that he was like, oh, this sucks so much. But at the same time, he was like really he was growing as a man, and I could see that he was maturing so fast, like in front of my eyes. Every time I talked to him, he like had a new perspective on the world. And I kind of envied that in a way. I was like, I'm having way more fun than him, but he has this character development that I just don't feel like I'm getting here at Penn State. Like, there's nobody forcing me to grow. I'm just here having a great time and like learning, but my character isn't being forced to change. And that's why I started looking for new opportunities. I never actually got the process started, but I was seriously looking into like transferring to an academy because I thought that character development thing was important to me. Ironically, he came to visit me one day, and I caught wind of there being a tryout to be the Lion, and so I sent in my application. I submitted it while he was at Penn State with me, and yeah, then the rest is history. Some wild things went my way, and I got selected.
Yeah, so let's go into a little bit. How was the tryout process to become this, this figure that everyone looks up to you, taking pictures with little kids? Could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So for those of you listeners who don't go to Penn State, the Nittany Lion is a very unique mascot in the sense of it is one person who fills the role, and it's extremely busy, over 40 hours a week on average. Some weeks as much as like 80, some like your light weeks are maybe like 15 hours on top of full-time classes. So there are 3 stages to this tryout process. There's an application followed by an interview and then an audition. Cuts can be made at any point. And the application, they want to filter out the people that they just don't think could handle it. So in your application, they want to establish that, number one, academically, you can hold your own because your academics are going to be challenged with the extreme time commitment. Number 2, they want to see that you're a passionate Penn Stater. They ask you to talk about your experience as a fan at Penn State games, like what sports you go to, like what you do as a fan, etc. And then 3rd, they want to get a hint of your creativity. They want to see that like you have some of your own flair that you're going to bring to the table. So yeah, if you make it past that application stage, and there are like references and everything involved in that, but if you make it past that application stage, then there's an interview. And this is where the phrase "symbol of our best" starts to really take hold. And again, to you non-Penn Staters, the Nittany Lion mascot is known as the symbol of our best at Penn State. And when you're selected to be the Lion, you're expected to be the symbol of our best, not only when you're in costume, but also out of costume. Because as I said, there's only one person. So anything you do, good or bad, will reflect on Penn State, good or bad. So if I were to, get an underage at a party or something, guess what? My name's in the paper. Zach Sowa, Nittany Lion gets underage, and Penn State gets bad publicity. Meanwhile, if I like found the cure to cancer, Zach Sowa, Nittany Lion finds cure to cancer. So basically, they really want to understand you as a person. They want to know that you can represent Penn State interpersonally, because all of your interactions with everyone, whether it's alumni, fellow students, members of other schools or other mascots or whatever, they want to know that you can be a good representative. So the interview it's about finding your personality and gauging that comfort level. And then finally, if you make it to this stage, there's an audition where you have to do the infamous 50 one-armed push-ups. A tradition of the Lion is that we do one-armed push-ups for the score that Penn State has every time we score a touchdown. So after our first touchdown, we do 7. Then after our second touchdown, we do another 14, etc., all the way to, in the case of Penn State versus Idaho, my senior year, we scored 79, I believe. So yeah, those one-arm push-ups are an important part. That is the only prerequisite to try out. You have to be able to do those 50 one-armed push-ups. You also prepare a skit where you basically highlight your own personal skills and whatnot. If you're a dancer, you do some dance. If you're like an acrobat, you do some sort of acrobatic skills. It's really yours to shape. And then finally, we have the improv section where you get a random prop out of a bag and you have to fill a minute's worth of time entertaining the crowd with this random prop. But the catch is you can't use it as what it actually would be. For example, like I have a hat here. I'd use this as like a bowl or something and just pretend to eat cereal. But then I can't do that for a minute and be entertaining. So then I'd have to like try to use it as a boomerang or something. It's a tough mental challenge. You got to keep your mind going. But yeah, that's it.
So to start this whole obviously tryout process, you get the role to become Penn State's next Nittany Lion. Could you just describe, I remember you talking a little bit before, you're talking about how your friend that was a diver at military academy kind of, I don't want to say you envied him, but you're trying to be more like him. You're trying to find this development, try and build yourself to make an impact on the world. And could you just tell the listeners out there a little bit about what this opportunity meant to you?
Yeah, so I was actually asked this exact question more or less. They didn't ask it in the context of my friend, but they asked like what this opportunity meant to me and what I viewed the role as a Lion to be at Penn State. And I mentioned a little bit earlier that I'm very service oriented, and that's exactly how I viewed it. As I said, my parents met at Penn State, and I was always kind of like looking for a way to like pay it forward. And ironically, as an Nittany Lion mascot, your job is to bring joy and energy to the community that surrounds Penn State and really anybody you interact with. And that's an extremely simple service, but also an extremely rewarding service. There's a lot of different forms of service, many of which are fulfilled in people's everyday careers. Like, for example, I do cybersecurity now. And like, yes, I can draw some lines to say I'm securing people's computers to prevent them from hackers, and it's like saving them money and like all these things. Like I can trace it to service. It is service, but as the Lion, every single interaction I had was visibly like affecting people's lives. I would walk into a room and do a little ear rub and people's faces would light up. They'd laugh, they'd do all these things, and they would have fun. No matter how bad a day I was having, I was able to positively impact other people's days just by being the Lion. Even on my worst off days where I wasn't funny or I was tired or like anything, like just by being the Lion, I was able to positively impact people's days. So it was extremely rewarding. And And yeah, I took every opportunity possible to make as big of an impact in that service aspect as I could at Penn State. So
I mean, you gotta make the most out of the opportunity you were given. Luckily enough, you were able to, get the spot, become the mascot for our football team, for our sports, for our college in general. And Zach's a prime example of, making the best out of the cards that you're dealt. I mean, obviously some days everyone has bad days. Everyone
absolutely.
does. Doesn't matter who the hell you are. If you're at least trying, I mean, that's better than, sitting in your bed and just laying down and acting all depressed. I mean, you got a job to do at the end of the day. And
Yep.
Zach's prime example of just getting up and doing it, even though that, we'll go into a little bit later that, there's not any credit given to Zach. There's credit given to the mascot. But let's go on to after the tryout process, after this opportunity hits you, you're given this gift of becoming the Nittany Lion. First football game that you go to, you're on the field, you're in the uniform. The dream is finally coming true. Could you tell the listeners out there what exactly that feeling is like?
Um, ironically, not really. Because my first game experience, I'll tell you a couple things that were going through my head. Number one, well, it's really loud. Number two, this is really freaking cool. Number three, and this one was the most prevalent one in my first game. What the heck do I do next? I was so worried about like making sure, because Penn State's a very traditional school. The Lion is an extremely traditional mascot. You just have to look at it to see that. It looks like it hasn't been updated since the 1920s, although it has, I promise. Um, but yeah, so all these traditions, I had to fill these traditions, and I had little to no like confidence in actually doing that. So I was so worried about doing everything that was expected of me. So unfortunately, I didn't have the time to really like bask in the moment and like soak it in. Luckily, having done it for 3 years, I really got to bask in it by my senior year. It was second nature to me. And one of the things that the Lion does at a game, in the pregame, he runs out to the 50-yard line alone on the field and 110,000 fans in the stands. And he points to a quarter of the stadium at the time. He'll point east, west, north, south. And he will individually make the sides get loud and then cut them off, make them get silent. And eventually he gets all 110,000. And that is an unbelievable feeling to have a silent stadium, knowing that they're just waiting for you to squat and like start to raise your arms again to get them loud. And I mean, every millisecond of that was savored in my senior year. So
Yeah, so let's go into, so keeping this position as the Lion, there's this big secret around. No one can really know who is the Lion at Penn State, and I'm sure a lot of the other schools are like that as well. How on earth were you able to keep that secret for the past 3 years?
So to be completely honest, I wasn't perfectly able to keep the secret.
No one is.
Obviously, it slips out, word spreads slowly, because there are a given number of people that like by default will know. For example, my tryout was an open tryout; anybody could come. So yeah, there weren't too many students at my tryout, so not many students knew from my tryout, but then the entire cheer team and the entire Lionettes team, they all have to know because I'm part of their team. And then I also travel often with the band, so the band starts to find out. And like, so cheer, Lionettes, band, all of a sudden now over 100 students know, probably a couple of hundred. And yeah, it's not that easy to trust a couple hundred. But with that said, a couple hundred people out of 45,000 or whatever is at Penn State is next to nothing. I went to class every day, and people in my class would have no idea what I did. I'd be a kind of annoying group member to work with. I'd have no time to schedule a group meeting and whatnot, and they'd probably hate me. But yeah, they had no idea why I was never available. And really, for me, it was easy to keep a secret because it was way more fun that way. I felt like Hannah Montana. I was like living a double life. And it was really fun because, yeah, I mean, I feel bad for people like Trace McSorley, like Saquon, that like couldn't actually walk on campus or like go anywhere really without being like swarmed. And I knew what that felt like because whenever I was in the costume, I couldn't go anywhere without getting swarmed. So I knew what that was like, and I also knew what it was like to be a nobody, and I really liked being able to turn it on and off. So yeah, I would go to class, be irrelevant, walk through the hub, be irrelevant, go to my senior year, a bar, be irrelevant. But then at least every day I had time in the costume and I was like the big man. Like, so yeah, there was no ego issues whatsoever. I just had this thing in the back of my head that like, I know this, you don't.
You're given the opportunity to have both ends of the spectrum in college, which a lot of people don't, especially these big time athletes like Saquon, Trace McSorley, even going to Miles Sanders. And, I'm sure that most of the time it's really nice. It's a good feeling, but sometimes there's always that feeling that, man, I like that being a regular college kid might not be that bad. So let's go into a little bit. How on earth were you able to balance your schoolwork with being this Nittany Lion? And obviously this schedule is insanely busy. Could you go into a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's grueling. And there's actually, I think it's the wrestling coach. I think Cale Sanderson at Penn State always says to his wrestlers, there are three major aspects of your college experience. There's athletics, there's academics, and there's social. One of them is going to have to suffer at all times. You can't balance all three. Now, with that said, I think I did a pretty good job when all said and done, balancing all three. But ultimately, what it came down to was priorities. I knew that, primarily I was here to get an education, so I did whatever it took to keep up with my classes, whether that meant giving up sleep, which I probably did more than I should have. My body suffered as a result at times. But I also obviously had this obligation and desire to serve as a mascot in as many opportunities as possible. But ultimately, being that I was the only one, I had the kind of flexibility to accept events or decline them as needed. So if I had a huge test that I wasn't prepared for the next day or something, I could just call up my coach and say like, hey, I don't think I have the time to do this event today. And as long as it wasn't like a football game or something, I would be able to decline it. But yeah, I also had access to the Morgan Academic Center, which is the academic center for athletes to help them academically in terms of providing tutors, early scheduling, which was huge for me. Scheduling stuff early was a godsend. But yeah, ultimately it was priorities. And like in terms of social life, here's where I really think I like kind of beat the system. When I was the Lion, I again knew that like I could not get in trouble. That was off the table, because if I got in trouble, I was done. I lost the scholarship that I had. I lost like my position, obviously, and I tarnished my name permanently. Like I knew that was just not an option. So with that said, I mean, I still wanted a social life, obviously, and I didn't have much time throughout most of the week to do it. Ironically, on late nights, maybe Fridays or Saturday nights after a football game, I mean, literally most times after like midnight, I'd finally be free. And so I'd go to a party or something. And this is even when I was like underage. I'd go, but I'd drive there. I would drive to the party, not consume any alcohol so that I could drive back, because guess what? Like if I had consumed alcohol, I wouldn't be able to wake up for my event the next morning or something. So I would I would drive to these social events with a friend too. Like I had a friend that would drive with me, not drink anything. Um, and yeah, we would just act a little bit crazy as if we had like we would just talk loud, just be goofy with other people. People wouldn't think twice about it. We'd have like a cup of water in our hand the entire night, just have a great time and leave 2 hours later perfectly ready to attack the day the next morning. So yeah, I always viewed that as a little bit of a cheat, like going to the parties but just not drinking anything, because it was a perfect balance of social life and not sacrificing the next morning as a result, or risking anything while doing it.
Well, when people have this big role to fill, they struggle finding ways to just cope with the busyness. I mean, obviously, everyone needs that time of off, like being off work, just having that little mental reset. And take it from Zach, you figured it out. Obviously, that sometimes you take out sleep a little bit, but when you want to do something that bad, sometimes it's worth it at the end of the day. I mean, that's what some of you listeners out there got to realize, that it does take sacrifice to be successful in anything that you want to do. And to be honest, Zach was a great Nittany Lion. There was really, I could never think of
Thanks,
a
buddy.
time where he had a bad day, a bad show out, even on his worst days. You just got to figure it out. Life's going to have those struggles. Figure it out, guys. Everyone will be okay. Look at Zach. He's fine. All those sleepless nights might have caught up to him a little bit, but he's still okay at the end of the day.
To be clear, um, even though Ronan may not have seen some of my worst times, I don't know if he did or not. I can't particularly remember. Um, but you just got to roll with the punches even when you are having a bad day. On my audition day, I literally landed a backflip flat on my face in my audition. I thought it was over then. I was like, well, this was a fun process. I tried. It'll be a story that I can tell someday that I tried out to be the lion. But I mean, what did I do once I landed on my face? I quick thought on my feet. I was like, how do I pretend like I meant to do that? So I started doing one-arm push-ups. I didn't think it was convincing at all, but somehow still got selected. So I mean, you always just got to make the best of what you got, even if it is a crap hand, because even with the crap hand, you can sometimes flip it around.
Obviously, when you were the Nittany Lion, I feel like you were saying earlier that you had the ability to go back and forth between, being a regular college student, but also being this larger than life character. Was there any time that you felt like putting the mask on kind of took away from the recognition that you deserved, or did you kind of throw that under the bus?
Not at all. As I said, like my whole like reasoning for doing it was always service based. Um, so yeah, I never really thought twice about it. Like as I said, like I knew in my head what I was doing and I felt good about it. I was like, I'm serving my community. I'm positively impacting these people's lives. And like that's how I derived my own value. Like people talk about self-love all the time. Well, personally, I think it has a lot to do with like taking responsibility and fulfilling those responsibilities. My responsibility was to serve this community, to positively impact people's days. And I was tangibly doing that every day. I could see their smiles. I could feel their hugs. I could like feel the force of their high five and like just feel their energy in general. So I never questioned like what I was doing. I knew that I was fulfilling my purpose, and I mean, didn't think twice about like getting recognition for it. I knew that once I was a senior, it would come, but I mean, I wasn't even particularly, actually, I was kind of dreading that because that would mean that my time was over. Like, yeah, it just wasn't relevant to me.
And sometimes when you're doing good, it's not about the recognition that you
Mm-mm.
think, if you think you deserve, let alone get, because, Zach put out this larger than life character into the world. He brought the kindness, he brought all the values of Penn State that are important with just a mask on. And that's okay. Some people are never going to get the recognition they deserve, but I can tell you that it's seen behind the scenes. Someone's actually watching you even when you don't realize it. At every step of the way that I mean, Zach, take it from him. How many times do you feel like that you really made an impact on just someone's day in general?
Well, as the Lion, every single day. I mean, I could count on basically every day. I could count hundreds that I like put a smile on their face. So as I said, that was extremely tangible. But you started to segue into something that has really blown my mind recently, about like, people are watching, like you're impacting people whether you know it or not. Um, and ironically, as I said, like, um, in most of my classes, people had no idea what I did. Um, but I had this friend in a few of my classes. I had a few classes with him throughout college, and we worked on some group projects. And I said I thought most of my group members hated me because I was annoying to work with. But ironically, this friend, who, like, great kid, he's super smart, and like, yeah, he was great to work with. I enjoyed working with him on all these things. Um, and he even, as I said, um, this will even tie into the next thing.
Mhm.
Faith has been big in my life. Well, freshman year, he became Catholic. And so like we talked about that. Like, yeah, ironically, most kids go to college and like experiment with like drinking and maybe drugs or like all these. Well, this kid like went to college and became Catholic. So like, I thought he was such a fascinating kid. So anyway, got to know him well. He just got engaged recently, and I sent him like, or on his post, I said like, "Oh, congrats, bro! So proud of you!" And like, I was thinking, like, I was excited because I was like, I'm good enough friends with this kid. I'll be invited to his wedding. Well, he ended up calling me up a couple weeks later, and he asked me to be his best man, and I was floored. I could not believe that I was that level of like importance to him. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously a huge honor, but that just goes to show like you have no idea the type of impact you have on people. Like, I I was pretty sure I was getting invited to his wedding. Meanwhile, I get like the most like crucial position outside of like one of the people getting married. Like, it was crazy stuff. But yeah, super excited for that. Super excited for them. But yeah.
It's amazing how much of an impact that you can make on anyone. If just you show up with a smile, you show up in a good mood, even if you're not, end of the day, you're going to affect someone,
Yep.
and take it from Zach, that makes you feel good on the inside, no matter who it is. I hope that
Yeah,
anyone out there, when they make someone else feel good, they take a little bit upon themselves, because that's a feeling of enjoyment too for yourself. And that's how it should be. But let's,
absolutely.
let's, let's go into a little bit. So obviously being Catholic is a huge part of your life. Could you tell the listeners out there what that means to you exactly?
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, it's just how I was raised. So it's like kind of ingrained, um, in my heart, kind of, in basically my way of thinking. And it's really um, what drives my values. I mean, Christians can relate broadly to this idea of like, I view Jesus as like the greatest leader of all time. And how did he lead? Through service. And there's a lot of interesting arguments about like who's great leaders throughout history and whatnot, and a lot of the great leaders amassed a ton of followers in their time. Like they maybe had like they led a huge like revolution or whatever. Or like, I mean, think of like George Washington. He led a revolution or against the British, and like he's viewed as this great leader. Well, Jesus, back in like 2,000 years ago or whatever, he picked 12 people and he served them. I mean, like there's a story in the Bible about him like washing their feet, and they were just like so shocked. What's he doing washing our feet? Like he's Jesus. Like, but that was what drove him. He was a servant. And the most crucial part of leadership, in my opinion, is not the ability to amass followers. It's to create leaders. So while he had 12 apostles during his lifetime, and by the way, everything we know about Jesus basically happened in a span of 3 years. So in 3 years, the time that I was the lion, he had 12 apostles that then spread his word across the entire world. And now what? I think there's like 3 billion Christians around the world 2,000 years later. And why? It's because he created leaders. He served others in this leadership role, and created more leaders who could create more leaders. So it's just this perpetuating thing, and it's all done through love and service to others. So I try to idolize that and live that out as much as I can, but obviously
and I like the way that you're phrasing it, as you're not, some people in the religious that have this big affiliate with religion, that you're not pushing this on anyone. The more way of you're taking it is that, hey, here's the example that I got from it. This is what I interpreted, and this is how I view it. To anyone out there, that should be how you view life in general. Take it from Zach. As a guy, as a man, he understands that not everyone is going to have the same opinion. But the point that I want to make is that, take it from the Bible. I'm not a religious guy. And something that he said that got to me, at least, that, to be a leader, that you need to be able to make other people leaders, make your impact bigger than just serving yourself. You need to serve other people as well. And the point that you're the lion, you're trying to make it as a service. You don't care about, sometimes what your self-worth is, and you're worried about someone else. That's what humanity should be like at the end of the day. When someone's down, you can pick them up. And then when you're down, someone else is going to pick you up. World keeps spinning, guys. The world will always keep spinning, and someone will always be there to hopefully try and get you up out of those bad times and, really make the good times a little bit better. And something I want to go into next is that, this experience as the Nittany Lion is a huge role to fill. Obviously, that I don't want to say you can't mess up, but that's pretty much it. Just being this figure that now people, when you took off that mask, could look up to. What does that mean to you internally?
It's kind of just expanding on what I said earlier about like responsibility. Obviously, like now all of a sudden, it wasn't only if I did something big, like whether I got arrested or like cured cancer. Like when my identity was secret, I mean, the information's out there. The media could find it if they really wanted to. Like if I got arrested, they'd find it. So, but yeah, when it was secret, I was just avoiding the big things. I was trying to avoid being in the news basically because of something I did wrong. But when my identity was revealed, I mean, all of a sudden I'd be walking downtown and I would like see people staring at me and like pointing and whispering like, wait, that's the lion, right? And I mean, I'd laugh because I'd be like, well, it's public now. Like, you don't have to be
Something you're
quiet.
not used to
Yeah,
5 days ago.
right. But no, what that really said to me is like, all right, like it's time to really focus because everyone is watching now. Like you can't have any interaction that is negative because people know who you are, and like that will reflect negatively on you or Penn State. So yeah, it was really just a call to even more responsibility. But obviously, like congratulations always feel good. Like people often would come up to me and be like, "Hey, you did such a great job. Like, loved your work as the Lion, blah blah," blah. And like it feels good. Like it does to anybody. And I mean, it was a great like uh dopamine rush or whatever. I think that's what would be that's what would be triggered there. Like obviously hearing that stuff's great, but yeah, ultimately I was viewing it as a responsibility to really step up to the plate and live out what I'm supposed to live out.
It's kind of surreal to look at, even, 3 years ago when you first put on the mask, you first put on the costume, no one knows who you are. And the fact when you finally take off the mask and then you have these people realizing like, oh my God, like that's the old Nittany Lion on the street. And the fact that you remained the same person, I can only take this from 1 year, but the point where I met Zach when I first became a cheerleader and told the very end of his time as a Lion and being a part of our team as well, that there was no change. There was no change. Zach has always been the same type of guy. And I want people out there to realize that it does not matter of how big you are in life. You should, I don't want to say stay the same because I don't like that the way I'm phrasing that, but be the same person. Have the same character that you had when you were nothing. It's
Let it
just
amplify your character is I think what you're getting at. Like they always say like money brings out like your true character. Like if you're like greedy or whatever, your money's going to amplify that. If leadership also brings out your true character. So yeah, I mean like if you have your values, any position you find yourself in, just let that position figure out ways to make that position amplify your core values. And yeah, stay true to you. That's
I love it, brother. So let's backtrack a little bit into this last game where the last time you're putting on this costume on senior night. Could you tell the listeners out there a little bit what that feeling's like?
so I think your memory is actually a little bit off here.
Senior night,
My
senior
senior
night.
night wasn't that wasn't my last time wearing the costume. My last time wearing the costume was Thon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
so there was actually a period of about 3 months where my identity was known, but I was still serving as the Lion. And it was a weird time because I'd be at like games and people would be yelling to the Lion. Like I'd be in costume at a game and people would be like, Zach, Zach. No, but yeah, so that was a kind of weird period. But yeah, I mean, as the perfect like pinnacle of my time and my service as the Lion, I served my last event ever, and I targeted this from my freshman year. I knew my freshman year when I was selected to be the Lion. I was like, I know what my last event is going to be, and it's going to be Thon. I'm going because Thon is such a huge impact time. Like for anybody who doesn't know, Thon is a 46-hour dance marathon. It's actually a year-long fundraising effort to raise awareness and money to support families and research for pediatric cancer. Families affected by it and research for it. So yeah, it's this huge event. We have our arena, our basketball arena is filled with 15,000 people for 46 straight hours. Everybody on their feet the whole time. Obviously, there are a ton of families whose children are affected by pediatric cancer there. And I'm telling you, the impact you're able to have as anybody involved in Thon, the impact you're able to have on these kids and their families is immense. And they let you know. I'm not a super emotional guy, but every single year, 3 years, actually, even my freshman year, like before I was the Lion, every single year I shed tears at Thon because it is such an amazing experience. So my senior year, I decided to make my biggest impact ever, and I decided to dance all 46 hours, which was grueling, way harder than I expected. But I did this as a partnership with my best friend at Penn State and our mic man, like basically think of a hype man for pep rallies and whatnot, Eric Gaspich. We decided to be a dancer couple, and we actually raised $50,000, just the two of us, to go towards Thon and benefit the families and research for pediatric cancer. We capped it off by dancing 46 straight hours, and that was, as I said, that was the pinnacle. That was everything that I could have imagined and more.
You know, at the end of the day, you went into it saying that, you know, this is my way of helping people. And the point that you did that for 3 years and at the very end, you still wanted to do that. To me, I'm moved by that. To me, that's amazing. I hope someone out there also thinks that that's very insane as well, to just keep the same mindset through the good, the bad, the ugly. It's just insane to think about how someone can do that for such a, you know, 3 years might seem short, but when you're going through it, it seems long. And the point where there's a lot of trenches, and no matter where the trenches were, how deep they got, you somehow managed to pull out of them and make something make something bigger than yourself in total. You were always worried about the other guy in the room, the kid sitting in the corner. And that's what's amazing to me. And I hope more people can realize that life is way bigger than yourself. You can impact a lot more people no matter what you do. And the point where I want to go into next is that when you're at this football game on senior night, and it's the last home football game that you're the Nittany Lion, and you finally take that mask off and everyone's erupting for you, what was going through your head?
Um, a couple of things. Throwback to my first game. Wow, it's really loud. But the prevailing feeling at that point was just like I was so flattered at the support, because yeah, I mean that was 110,000 voices telling me thank you. That was all of them saying like, hey, you meant something to me. Like whether I just saw you from 100 yards away in the football game, or we interacted every day for the past 100 days. That was everybody just like saying thank you. And it was that was another time. I don't know if I actually shed any tears, but my eyes got real glassy then, because I was like, I couldn't believe that was going to be my last time like celebrating our football team with all of my 110,000 family members at Penn State there. So yeah, it was very bittersweet. It was flattering, but at the same time, just it was going too fast. I wanted time to take way slower.
And the point that I like that you've been making throughout this entire interview is that there has been no talk of regret with anything that you have done, even when you're talking about now that, you know, you hate taking off that mask. And there's a point where, I mean, there's probably that thought going through your head, like, dang, like I wish this would never end. I wish this feeling would go on forever. And you're still have the same mindset that you did a year ago with, you know, I'm still trying to help people. I'm still this, I don't want to say figure, that's not what I mean, but the point where you're now being looked up to by other people, that no matter where you are, that sometimes, some way, someone might recognize who you are, and that someone's always watching you. And the last point that I want to make on this topic is that there was nothing that else you would have done differently. This was the thing that you wanted to do. This is the way you wanted to do it, and hell, it worked out. At the
Yes,
very
it did.
end, like, I honestly, Zach, you've been, over the growth that I've seen from you, from a student to a real-time adult, it's honestly amazing that, you keep the same character, you keep the same mindset. You're always, if something's going wrong, it's hard to tell that you're in a bad mood, and that no matter where you are, that you're trying to impact someone else. And
Mhm.
that's something that I want people out there to realize, that no matter where you are, that's you can make an impact on someone else. Something as little opening the door for someone, putting a smile on your face as you walk by. Obviously, with masks on right now, it's kind of hard, but
Yeah, that is
uh,
brutal. I mean, it is, it's tough.
but just the little things, guys, that you can really change someone's perspective on their day. And before we go into the quote segment, I just want you to tell the listeners out there, if you could give them a last piece of advice to hold on to a little bit longer, what would you tell them?
Oh, I kind of have two. Can I do
Oh, I
two?
love, let's do two.
All right, we'll do two. Okay, so number one, um, get to know yourself, meaning figure out what values drive you in life and keep those the same. Like I'm a big advocate for growth throughout life and everything, but like grow in the context of your values. That will make everything in your life make so much more sense. Um, and also feel way more stable. Even when everything's falling apart, you'll know like your values haven't changed. You're still you. Um, Second of all, always be on the lookout for opportunities. I know this one's a very cliche one, but if you hear of an opportunity, just go for it. Like I love like uh high payoff, low risk like type stuff. And that's exactly where I was with the Lion. I thought I thought the likelihood of getting the Lion opportunity was literally zero. Like I wasn't even nervous when they were deliberating who they were going to pick because I didn't think there was a chance it was me. Um, but I did it just because the opportunity existed. And flash forward 3 years, I mean, that became my life. It shaped me and my character massively. It was everything that I was looking for, even though I didn't know it. So keep your eyes open for opportunities everywhere and don't ever be afraid to try something out. So
I love it, man. Go do something. I talk about it a lot. Don't be scared to get out of your comfort zone. Obviously, you're not walking into college thinking like, this is
you just
everything
gave
that I
me
want
the
to
perfect segue.
do.
Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. I know you're about to ask me about a quote, and I'm going to deliver it to you right here.
I love it.
Pope Benedict the 16th. You ready for this? The world offers you comfort, but you were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness. Boom.
Zach, what is that quote? What does that mean to you?
I mean, if you ask me, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, the world, look around you. Like, it's so easy to, like, there's always an easy choice. Like, for example, if you like work out in the morning or something, there's always the choice to skip your workout and sleep a little longer. Like, there's always the choice to procrastinate. There's always the choice to like do all these things that feel more comfortable. But like, let's be honest here. None of us wants to live an unremarkable life. We want to, we have these dreams. We want to do something, whether your idea is impacting like as many people as are in my background or impacting the whole world, or even if it's just like one person, like you have something you want to aspire to. But guess what? Like taking the comfortable route isn't going to get you there. You're made to achieve anything you want to achieve. Like I'm a big proponent that like there's a way to do anything. Like you might have to take a really weird path, but like there's a way to get to basically anywhere you want to be. And yeah, you just gotta not be afraid of being uncomfortable to get there, because discomfort is what leads you to fulfilling your destiny, which is greatness.
Brother, I love it. I am unbelievably happy that you came onto the show today and could just distribute some wisdom to everyone out there.
Huge
And
honor.
before I turn off the mic and everything, man, Zach, is there anything that you would like to plug before we go on with our night?
Let's see. Anything I want to plug? I'm pretty sure my boy Ronan's got some merch.
Oh my God, this guy.
No,
Go buy my merch.
It's pretty dope. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this dude's got way more style than I do. I just wear what I'm doing. That's a sick sweatshirt. Like, yeah. Check out the merch. Help my boy out. Help him grow. Share this podcast. Like, seriously, he's trying to achieve great things with this. Like, spreading wisdom. I mean, this is all shortcuts. You can learn something from anybody. So, like, when my man's feeding it to you, take it, share it, help everybody get wisdom from each other. So yeah, share the podcast, buy the merch, help my boy out.
Again, brother, I cannot thank you enough for taking some time out of your day and just being on my podcast. And to anyone listening out there, have a good rest of your day. And as always, y'all, just keep on keeping on.